You're listening to the Speaking Tongues podcast. I'm your host, El Charisse. Each week, I sit down to a conversation with multilinguals where we discuss and celebrate language, life, and culture through our own perspectives. Episode 108, Speaking Urdu. Hello, language lovers. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Speaking Tongues, the podcast in conversation with multilinguals. This week, we're talking about the Urdu language, Pakistani culture, and global citizenry with Faiza, an Urdu language educator, author, and content creator. In this episode, Faiza talks to us about the languages she was exposed to while growing up in Karachi. We learned about the similarities and differences between Urdu and Hindi and how many Urdu speakers can also understand spoken Hindi. We talk about the importance of greeting in Urdu, and we even learn how the greetings change depending on the age of the person you're speaking with. We talk about her going from being a speaker of Urdu to navigating how to be an educator of the language and why she still considers herself a student of Urdu. Faiza tells us important points about identity and why it's important to not just assume a person's heritage based on their looks. And she also tells us about her published children's book and her mission to get children interested in reading in any language, not just in Urdu. Big thank you to Faiza for sharing bits of your language and heritage with all of us. If you enjoy episodes of Speaking Tongues, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Speaking Tongues podcast on Apple Podcasts, and like and subscribe on YouTube so that other language lovers like ourselves can find the show. If you've been a long-time listener of the show or even a recent listener, you can now pledge ongoing support for the show on buymeacoffee.com or on patreon.com. And as you know, I wrote a book. My food zine of international language and cuisine, Taste Buds Volume 1, is available now for purchase. Check social media for the sneak peek inside the book and make sure you purchase one for yourself and one for your friends. Links to all platforms are in the show notes. Okay, let's chat. Welcome back to another episode of Speaking Tongues. I'm here today with Faiza. How are you today, Faiza?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so excited to talk to you about Urdu. And I just want to say, this is my one Urdu phrase that I've already got loaded. Aap kaisi ho?
Theek thaak, alhamdulillah. Aap sunaiye.
What was your response? Because I don't know how to translate the response, but I did learn how to.
So this is like the basic thing that you would like respond with. Theek thaak means I'm well.
Tea-talk?
And it sounds a lot like taking and talking of the clock. Theek thaak.
Tea-talk.
Theek thaak.
Okay.
Yes. And then we have, our basic Islamic phrases that we say that's like alhamdulillah, mashallah, subhanallah. And alhamdulillah is just being thankful to the God.
Alhamdulillah.
And so alhamdulillah. So it's theek thaak, alhamdulillah. That's how you would respond.
Alhamdulillah.
Fantastic. Look at you, fluent Urdu speaker.
We're getting off on the right foot right now.
There we go.
I like to start each episode with the same question, and that is, what is your first language and which languages have you learned to speak?
So that is a very interesting question to me because it has a very unique answer. My first languages have changed from when I was growing up to now as an adult. I grew up I was born and raised in Pakistan. And so my first language was Urdu. But when we moved to the United States when I was 15, and after like just couple more years at home, I left home for college and never went back. I love my family dearly, but just like, that's just not how my life turned out. The events just led for me to be away from family. And then I ended up marrying outside of culture and religion. So then that added another layer to it. Now my first language is English, and that's what we speak at home. But my husband is a refugee baby from Vietnam. So his first language is or was Vietnamese, and now his first language is English.
Oh, okay. Do
So that's what we
you
speak at home.
do you speak any Vietnamese? Does he speak any Urdu?
We speak enough to understand that not speak. We don't speak each other's languages.
Okay.
But we understand enough to know that we're being talked about or of.
Okay.
So we've been around it enough to know what the context of the speech is and what is being spoken. We don't understand exact details, and we won't be able to hold a meaningful conversation. He can't do it in Urdu, I can't do it in Vietnamese, but that's when we have each other as partners to be translators.
Yeah.
And it works out just fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And as you grew up in Pakistan, what city did you grow up in?
Karachi, Pakistan.
Karachi. Okay.
Yeah.
When you were growing up in Karachi, what languages were you exposed to? I know you spoke Urdu at home, but were there any other languages that you heard in Karachi being spoken, or any that were offered in school?
Yeah. So because Karachi is in the province of Sindh, that got me introduced to Sindhi, and it was a third language that we learned at school, but it wasn't a subject that you had to do good in, or it was like really focused on. The main ones were English first, second Urdu, and third would be Sindhi. So it was really like on the back burner. So all I could do or say in that language would just be very limited to how are you, and my name is, and everything is good. And that's about it. But I grew up in a Urdu speaking family. So that was our first language. But my dad grew up in Punjab, side of Pakistan. And so he his friends would speak in Punjabi. So anytime my dad was on the phone with his friends, we would hear Punjabi. Cool. And that's where I picked up a lot of Punjabi from. So now if I'm around Punjabi speaking people, I can understand everything that they're talking about. I do have difficulty communicating in Punjabi just because my vocabulary and my confidence isn't really there.
Right.
But I'm certain that if I was to just dive in there and be there for maybe like a month or two, then it'll come back, because it's there. It's just not in the mouth. It's right. In the ear. It's in the brain. It's so I was exposed to a few different languages, even growing up. Not any that I really ever got to fully use except English and Urdu.
Mm-hmm. Do any of those languages, like Sindhi, like Punjabi, or even through watching Bollywood movies and hearing Hindi, were there any correlations of those languages that you had with Urdu that you maybe made it easier for you to understand them, or to?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they're very, very related.
Okay.
If you know one, you can figure out a lot of different languages. Even Gujarati, if I'm around Gujarati, I'm able to pick on that as well. So yes, these all these languages are they have root words that are similar, and okay. They work together quite beautifully. So if you know, especially if you know Hindi and Urdu, you can try to put together a lot, but you just have to pay closer attention. But if you're around these other languages enough, then it's easier to pick up. And that is why a lot of Pakistanis and a lot of Indians are not monolinguals. They speak multiple languages because of trade, because of business, because of school, because of just interaction with all these different languages. And the content that is available to learn and be exposed to is there, and you naturally become a bilingual or multilingual or a polyglot.
Right. I think that's so cool.
It is the coolest thing.
It's really the coolest thing, and I love especially talking to Black and brown polyglots and people who've had this exposure to languages because of virtue of their heritage and their culture and where they're from in the world. And I think that's something that I want to celebrate more. And I want us to celebrate one another, because it's easy to celebrate being a polyglot or someone who studied 10 languages, someone who's studied all these languages, but someone who has it like in their blood, in their veins, as part of their culture and the
Yeah.
part of the world that they grew up in. Like, let's talk more about that. Like, I want to talk about more of that, and I want to celebrate and, and elevate more people who have this as a part of their culture. I just think it's the coolest thing.
Absolutely. It is the coolest thing, but it's also cool, I think, to us because we're not exposed to it
Mm,
as much,
mhm.
in a widely English spoken country, or where you are, if there isn't an exposure to all these languages. And even if there is, the dominant language is has taken over so much so that the other languages tend to die down with second or third generation.
Right.
But beautifully, it doesn't happen in countries like India or Pakistan, where there is multiple multiple regional languages. And it's not that it doesn't happen; it just happens very slowly. We have lost many languages in Pakistan as well. I can't speak of India, but I don't not have that information. But we have a lot of tribal languages that have disappeared, and there's no account of those because they weren't
Mm,
written languages; they
right.
were just spoken languages. Um, so it does happen, but at a very slow rate. But now, with the age that we're living in, that speed is likely to pick up, just like it did in the Western countries, especially in the United States. That English is our dominant language. It is an international language, actually, like it or not. Um, it is encouraged so that way we can communicate with each other.
Right.
It's not a bad thing, um, but it could be taken as a bad thing.
Of course.
So that's
Yeah.
also something that we have to celebrate, that we have this one language that we can communicate with other humans with.
Yeah.
It makes things a lot easier, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's talk about Urdu. Let's talk about some of the hallmarks of the language. And particularly, I'm curious, as a non-Urdu speaker, and I don't speak any languages of India or Pakistan or Bangladesh or of that region. Um, when I would love to know some hallmarks of Urdu, specifically when it comes to, like, how will I know that I'm listening to Urdu? What is it that is very particular about the Urdu language? Is it tonal? Is it agglutinative? Is it gendered? How do we form sentences? And what are some, I guess, like, specific things, or maybe not too specific, but what are some ways that, like, we would know that we're hearing somebody speaking Urdu?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because I think when we hear a language or when we see people of certain color or hair texture or just the way somebody dresses or whatever it is, right? We start to guess.
Mm,
And I think that is a natural thing to do. Is it the right thing to do? Probably not. But naturally, when we look at somebody, or like when somebody looks at me, depending on where I am too. So if I am, hanging out with Pakistanis around my family, it's understood that I'm Pakistani. Nobody questions that. Now, if I step away from that for a little bit, and if I'm hanging out with my Afghan friends, then everybody assumes that I'm Afghan. I
mm,
was just in Morocco and everybody just assumed that I was Moroccan, but
mhm.
I'm not. And the same thing would come with the language as well. So if I started speaking Urdu, um, and you don't have any other context around me to suggest otherwise, you could think that I'm speaking Hindi, but I wouldn't be. And so the
Mhm.
best thing to do is in order to just know there aren't any clues, even like in other languages like English. We have accents that you can pick up on, whether it's a British English or American English or Australian English. There are accents, but you have to have that knowledge, or you have to have heard it before in order for it to click. But even then, I feel like language and heritage and culture and nationalities and things like that is something that no matter what you're um, looking at or or you're hearing, it's the best thing to do is just to ask, um, instead of trying to guess what this language or could be, unless you're certain and you know that for sure. Like I am very familiar. I've been around Vietnamese people enough to know that they're speaking Vietnamese. I've been around enough Japanese to know this for sure is Japanese, or Italian, or German, now that I'm living in Germany. So all these places I've lived in and I've been around these people, so I know for sure what it is. But if there's any doubt, it's best to just ask what language you're speaking, because there's you might even like tick people off, because there are
Right.
language barriers, or like not barriers, but like there are divisions because of language that's being spoken.
Since since you're talking about not assuming that who speaks what and who looks like what and who's from where, but we want to learn some Urdu, and we don't want to offend anybody, but we want to learn, because that's how
Right.
we can communicate and build bridges. So we want to learn. So tell us a bit about the language, like how we're forming sentences. Tell us how we are greeting one another.
Yeah, that is my
um
favorite thing to start out with. So,
okay.
when somebody like hears you speaking a different language than they're used to being around, they always ask you, teach me some bad words.
Oh, I hate that. I
And
hate
I'm like,
that.
wait, can I teach you like something useful, that will like actually serve you like a great deal? And to me, those are the greetings. And me having been lived in all these different places around the world because of the work, or my husband's work, and we're just like following him around. Um, uh, I think the best thing is to learn the greetings, and in Urdu, or in Pakistan in general, and a Muslim community at large, it's Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. And no matter what Muslim country or world or person you meet, you can say that, and that just means peace be upon you upon meeting. And that's when you can start other things. But when we started our recording our podcast, you asked me how I'm doing in Urdu, very nicely and kindly, and that that starts off the conversation that you and I, who've never met before, you know, in a way that is so inviting. That there's no other way to put it. If you can greet somebody in their own language, that doesn't speak to just the ears; it speaks to the heart.
Yeah.
And automatically, you're just friends. And now now everything is calm. Now everything is chill. Like like we can do this. And so and Urdu is a very gentle language, and if you when you hear it too, it's poetic, it's gentle. The way we speak to each other is also in a very respectful way,
Right.
and there are layers of Urdu as well. And you asked me to tell you earlier about that too, so I think this leads us right to it. That Urdu is a language where there's a gender division. Everything has a gender. A person, of course, has a gender as well. But it could be a thumb, which is a anguta. It's a male. And there are fingers that are ungliya, or for one, it's ungli, and it's a female. So if you're going to be talking about finger, then you're gonna use the whole sentence as if you're speaking to a female. And if you're speaking about a thumb, then the whole sentence or the context is going to be in a masculine
Oh, wow.
format. And yes, so there's that is divided. I think it's similar in Spanish as well, where there's a and the o, and in Urdu it's a and e. So anguta is a ending in a sound is a male, and ungli, which is ending in an e sound, is going to be feminine.
Feminine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a respect and an age difference as well. So if you're speaking to anybody younger than you, then you speak in completely different way than
Mm-hmm.
you would if you were to speak to somebody who is older than you. So if I was even just asking, "How are you?" to somebody who is a male and older, I would say, "Aap kaise hain?" And
आप
if I
कैसे
was to,
हैं?
आप कैसे हैं? And now if I was to ask a female who's older than me, I would say, आप कैसी हैं?
आप कैसी है?
आप कैसी हैं?
Okay.
Yes. And now let's go down to the younger ones. If you're speaking to a boy who's younger than you, or a man who's younger than you, then you'd say, तुम कैसे हो?
तुम तुम कैसे हो?
Yes. And if you're speaking to a female who's younger than you, then तुम कैसी हो?
तुम कैसी हो?
Yeah. So the only thing that stays the same is how part, like
Mm.
kaisi and kaise, but everything else around it completely
Yeah.
changes. Even how you're referring to them is goes from aap to tum, depending on your where you are in the hierarchy of age, and then also from hand to ho, how you're going to, wrap up that question.
If you
Um,
don't know the person's age, how, because like with you, I said up, I didn't say
yeah.
tum. So if you don't know the person's age,
Yeah, the automatic way of speaking is with respect, which is up. So you
okay.
assume that everybody is higher level than you are. You're here, everybody else is up there. And that's how we speak to our children too at home. And even though my children don't speak any Urdu or Vietnamese, their first language is English. They're now starting to pick up a little bit more, and they're starting to learn more because I'm introducing them and putting them in courses or doing things myself that is encouraging me to speak more Urdu, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That is giving us a lot more opportunities to speak Urdu, even though I'm the only Urdu speaker in their lives right now. Teaching children how to speak Urdu, or like speaking to them, has given me the tools um,
Mm.
to teach Urdu. And I would have never had those tools otherwise, because I just grew up speaking it. So
Yeah.
I didn't know how to teach it until now that I'm having to teach it. And then I'm like, wait, while I'm doing it with my own children, I'm sure there's other children out there or who are in the same boat. So if they want to join us in on this language journey, then I started doing this. Right, I wrote a book, which led me to start a bilingual book in English and Urdu for very small children. It's a board book written in both English
Ooh,
and in Urdu script and in English transliteration.
that's
So
so
even if you have
cute.
no knowledge of Urdu or the script, you can sound things out in English and be able to read and
That's so
speak
cute.
Urdu. Yeah, it's adorable. I absolutely love it. And it has led me to do bilingual story time through
Mhm.
Urdu Learning Lab. And every week we pick up any English book and I read it in English, and then I translate it sentence by sentence or thought by thought with pictures and animations to make it more exciting for kids to learn new vocabulary, new ways of talking, because that's new to them. And I think children's books are so gentle
Mm.
and they teach you good morals, and gives us an opportunity to actually teach them Urdu that they will be able to use
Yeah.
actually.
So tell us about what that transition was like for you, being a speaker. You know, you grew up speaking Urdu, so it's automatic, to having to transition to teaching it. Like, what was the shift in your mind that had to happen for you to go from like the speaker to the teacher?
Yeah, so I still don't consider myself. I don't consider myself uh, at a teacher level just yet, even though my Instagram handle does say so. But I could teach a lot of things. But I myself am still a Urdu student. So I grew up speaking it, but I was never a really good student either at school. So I wasn't very good at Urdu even when I was in Pakistan. I had difficulty reading it. I had difficulty speaking it, and what I did speak was a very casual, your home Urdu. Not,
Mm.
I wouldn't be able to understand news or read newspaper and be able to make sense of all of it. And when I came to the United States, then Urdu like really left my life for the longest period of time. So from 17 till now, just a few years ago, till like 30, 35, I would say, is when I wrote this book. There was this huge gap of Urdu. I wasn't speaking to it. Even my own family, we speak English now. I mean, I speak Urdu to my mom, but that's about it. My sisters and I communicate in English. I communicate with everybody else in English. But because I wrote this book and I had to market it, and I had to like talk to people who are Urdu speakers, because that's who the book is written for primarily. Although it's not for just Urdu speakers, it is to also introduce Urdu to anybody else who can read English, can also get a little taste of Urdu by this book. So with that, I was introduced to a lot more Urdu, and I started talking to people. I started to follow more people that were speaking really good Urdu, and I started hearing them. And had you spoken to me just even a year or so ago, I had an accent when I would speak in Urdu. People can tell that she is not a native Urdu speaker. But now, the more I have practiced, the more I have heard it, the more I'm picking up on more vocabulary, and I'm picking up more on the accent. I think that I have improved myself, and especially doing these story times. I have to practice these. Once I get a book, then I translate it, and then I practice saying it. So I have to practice saying it in the right accent if I'm going to be presenting it. So then I listen to other people speaking, and then you have to be very careful of who you're speaking to, because that's the thing with accents, right? Like you pick up on other people's accents, like energy. If you're around some like negative energy, then it's just like, it takes over you, and then you start acting a certain way. And accents, the same thing. Like if you're around certain accent, no matter what language it is, you try to like pick that up. So I have to be very careful if I start hearing people that are speaking Urdu in a not so native accent, I block it. I don't want to hear it, because if I hear it, I'll pick up on it, and then it's going to be very difficult for me to snap out of it. And it's the same thing with English too. A lot of Pakistanis who speak English have an accent. So if you want to lose your English accent, and you want to start, or pick up on on an accent, you have to listen and hear and be in that accent, and then eventually you'll pick it up. So, or you'll never pick it up. It's just, it's accent. It doesn't matter.
Right. Are there dialects of Urdu?
Yes. There are dialects, but but you can understand them.
Okay.
Even and they're regional as well. So even if you're from Karachi and you're from a certain neighborhood, you speak different Urdu than you would from another neighborhood. So it varies from neighborhood to neighborhood as well.
Is there anything about Urdu, like language, that you would want people to know that maybe they don't have the first clue about?
I think the first clue about it is that people not necessarily need to know, because there's no really need to know any language. This is something a language is just a mode of communication. I don't care what you're speaking, just speak and use it for your own benefit and the benefit of your society, or whatever fits your life. But the thing about Urdu is that it is written in script, which is different than the Hindi script. It has a lot of similarities. So if you can speak Urdu, then you can speak Hindi as well. But this is just conversational Hindi and Urdu. This is your common man talking. It's not, you can, if I speak Urdu, I cannot understand news in Hindi. If people speak, Hindi, they cannot understand news in Urdu. That's pure Urdu and pure Hindi. But conversationally, we can do that. But it is written differently. And because it's written differently, I'm sure that there are other things that go with it that I'm no expert in diving into or addressing. The other thing is that we do get confused or for one or the other, mainly with Hindi, because there are a lot more people speaking that, and that is just people know more about India than they do of Pakistan. So if people do hear me and see me, then their automatic thing is that she's Indian and she's speaking Hindi. And even when we're like traveling around the world, I get that all the time. Never has anybody ever said that, oh, you're Pakistani, you're speaking Urdu. It's always, she's Indian and she's speaking Hindi. And then they'll start talking to me about Bollywood and start singing Bollywood songs to me because, oh, this is the song I know. And I know Shah Rukh Khan and I know this and that. And it's something that I have to stop and really assess and tell people that that is not who I identify as. I am a Pakistani American, and no matter how much I'm to you, I may look like or sound like an Indian, or although my ancestors are from there. Today, myself personally, I do not identify as that. I am a Pakistani American, and nothing is really going to change that.
Exactly.
Unless I decide to change that myself. If I start to identify as something else other than that, then that's a personal thing. And again, that's something that instead of assuming and just by looking and hearing things, I might look a lot like or might sound a lot like something, but it really isn't me. And give me an opportunity to tell you more about me than for you to assume, because you'd be wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We do not like assumptions around here.
Yeah, no, we don't. And I think that is also a new school of thought too. We know better now.
Yeah.
And we have the understanding of our differences, and we are owning it now that then even the generation before us did not.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
I want to tell a really quick story. A couple of years ago, I had very good friends who were Pakistani, and I had not had very close Pakistani friends until, I don't know, this was maybe 15 years ago or so. And they took me in, and I had Pakistani biryani, and I was getting, my friend she would do henna on my hands when we were just hanging around. Gorgeous. I love it. She would thread my eyebrows when like we'd be hanging out. She actually gave I should have taken it out. No, she gave me the shirt of her shalwar kameez. And because one time I said like, oh, this is really, really beautiful. And I really love it. And then I think she was moving, or maybe it was older or something. She didn't really want it. And she gave me like the top. And I was like, are you sure? Because
that is a very Pakistani thing to do.
And I was just like, okay, so I haven't worn it in a few years. I absolutely cherish it, love it. It's in the drawer behind me. And she ended up moving back to Lahore. They were from Lahore. And her brother became very close with her brother's son, like loved them, like love them. They ended up moving back to Lahore too. They were living in the UK. And they invited me to come to Lahore. And I was like, absolutely, 100%. Like, I cannot wait to go to Pakistan. And I didn't end up going. And I'm sad because I really wanted to go, and I wanted to wear a shalwar kameez and eat all the biryani that I could get into my belly.
You're gonna have to go to Karachi for that though.
Okay.
Just so
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
You're gonna have a hard time finding a real good one in Lahore. But
Oh gosh.
there's a little bit of beef between those two cities too. You can probably sense it.
Biryani wars.
Biryani wars.
But please tell me what I missed out on not going to Pakistan. Tell us about the culture in Pakistan, and anyone who wants to visit like me, like what can we expect? What are we going to see? What can we experience? What should we look forward to?
Right. So I only have the knowledge of Pakistan and its beautiful, rich culture till I was 15. Now, this is
Okay.
long time ago. I'm 37 now. So, and a lot has changed since then. But because of the life choices that I have made, it has made it very difficult for me to go back to Pakistan, although I try every so often to get the visa and go there, but it doesn't happen.
Okay.
But what I do know about this culture is that it is very, very giving and very inviting. And you've already got a taste of that from your friend. When you come to our homes or into our families, or even as a stranger to Pakistani culture, we feel like you must know everything about us right there and right then. And we will throw everything we have at you, whether it be our food or whether it be our traditional attire or festivities, things like you said that I'm not sure how long you were friends with, but if you're already, if she's already threading your eyebrows, she's very, this is done personal. As the eyebrows to us are, sacred.
Yeah.
you don't mess with our eyebrows. And so, and like, if you're applying henna on, these are the things that are, we're in each other's personal space now. Like we're up close and personal. And I think that is a Pakistani culture in a nutshell. We're very touchy-feely people. We love to hug and give and feed. We love to feed people till they cannot eat anymore. And I have also I've never experienced this myself, but I have seen people that are non-Pakistani or are coming from anywhere else. When they go to Pakistan, the hospitality is to the level where they won't even take your money. If you were to go to any shop to buy something, they'll just give it to you as a gift. Or if you're going to grab a bite, then they know that you're a foreigner. They'll just give it to you as a gift to a guest, because you're not. Because I think with the political situation and how media has portrayed Pakistan to be, there hasn't been that many tourists going there. And forever. I mean, certain parts of Pakistan tourists still go to, but to like the northern side, the mountains and stuff like that, but not many go to the city. So when they do see somebody from the outside, they're like, whoa, a guest is here. And then, we shower you with everything and more that you have already experienced. So if you were to go to Pakistan, you will be royalty.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful thing to experience, as I have experienced this myself when I visited Vietnam for the first time, and it was during Tet, which is a Lunar New Year.
Right.
And all my now relatives, my in-laws, and we're all about the same height and stature. So they're like, oh, there's oh yeah, you put this on and you try this on. And so like all of them would just give me like their aoyais and try different things. And there's like, we'll take you to here, we'll show you this and show you that. And everywhere I went, because they'd never seen anybody who looked like me. So it was a beautiful thing to experience that invitation and welcome, because it could have been the other way.
Exactly.
Like, she's different, so she's a threat, and we're gonna treat her as it. But
Mm-hmm.
it was a very different experience for me to go over there and be welcomed
Right.
as a guest and showered with all these things and the hospitality. It was beyond belief and a very, very neat experience. And things
It's
like that really does, change your perspective. Um,
absolutely. I think it's so beautiful, when you can have that experience, like you said, of being welcomed and being showered and being, taken care of, because it could easily go the other way.
and it
Just
has
like you said,
and
yeah.
yeah, and lucky are the ones who are getting this experience, this unique experience, because
Hmm.
a lot of times it's not that way.
Yeah,
um
yeah. I think culture is really meant to be shared
mhm,
and not and appreciated and not appropriated. And I think that there's maybe a fine line between
mhm.
appreciation and appropriation. um and I think about this every conversation I have, like, please do not cross this line with your enthusiasm because
Right,
I really just appreciate, getting to learn about someone else's culture and
right,
what they're how they're moving through the world. And I just never want to, offend anybody or make it
right.
seem like I'm approximating myself in a way that I shouldn't. Miss Faiza, please tell us about your platform and please tell us about the book that you've written.
Yeah, that's my favorite
And
thing.
tell us tell us what you do, and most importantly, let us know how we can find you and how we can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So my Instagram handle is teacher underscore Miss Faiza. And I have written a bilingual book, and my second book is in the works right now, which is not going to be bilingual, but it is still going to be cultural driven. Um, in a very fun way. But this book is One Black Cat, Ek Kala Billa. It is a bilingual book written in English and in Urdu with English transliterations in the middle. So, and it's very, very simple. It's just going through a basic way of a cat's life every day, which is very similar to any baby's life every day. They eat and they sleep and they play. And my primary focus on this platform on Instagram is to encourage people to read. I don't care what language you're reading in. I only read in Urdu is because I know Urdu well enough to be able to read in Urdu. But it could be any language. I don't care what you speak, even if it's whatever sign language. Use that if you can't speak. I just want people to read, and with that we will open the windows and doors to other cultures and other ways of lives, and then we will know we don't necessarily have to travel to some place to really experience and learn from that. We could do it through books, and that's what they're there for. So my primary focus here is not to teach Urdu. My primary focus is to get people reading to their children.
Yeah.
And Urdu is just a bonus that comes with it. I try to do a lot of good work through my readings as well. So everything you see on my platform is one way or another a philanthropy project.
Mm.
I do the bilingual story times I talked about. All the proceeds from that goes to building school libraries in Pakistan, because that is an alien concept there, unless you're going to a really posh and fancy school where you're paying outrageous prices. Any other school does not have libraries. So we're trying to raise funds through these bilingual story times to build school libraries in
Yeah.
Pakistan. So every child in Pakistan, hopefully one day, from this movement, will have access to books of good
Right.
quality.
Okay. When do you have your story times? Are they at set
So it's every
times?
yeah. So for now, it has been every Sunday, a Sunday morning.
Okay.
But we've gained a little bit of popularity now after a year or so of doing so. So we're going to be offering it twice a week, same time, Saturday and Sunday morning. And we are also going to be taking the same program to Pakistan. It'll still be bilingual, but this way, they'll be able to learn and pick up English and Urdu. And it'll serve the same purpose, but just reverse, I guess.
This is so exciting.
Yeah, and in Pakistan, people who are going to be registering or enrolling in this story sessions, which is I call it a bilingual book club. If they're going to be becoming our bilingual book club members, they're going to be donating it directly to another agency, which is goread.pk. You can follow them as well. They're doing the good work by they have their own publishing company, and they are producing good quality books, and they're taking other books as well, and they go street to street, school to school, doing story times in places that is just unimaginable. Like there wouldn't be any access to reading material hadn't been for this organization. So if you donate the money to them, take a screenshot of it, send it to us, and then we'll send you a Zoom link to join our book club meetings. And that will be starting hopefully starting next week. I think that's where we're launching both, going to Pakistan and also offering our book club meetings twice a week.
Awesome. I will add links to your platform and to that site in the show notes for this episode so that people can find you.
Thank you so much. We really, I think this is good work, and we can make a world of a difference in people's lives if they were being read to as small children.
I've had so much fun talking with you.
Me too.
This has been a blast. I'm really, really happy that we had a chance to connect and we had a chance to talk.
This was so much fun. This is raw me, and I get to share the unique life that I've had an opportunity to live.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was chosen, sometimes it wasn't. But great things came out of all of it.
Yeah.
And good things continue to come out of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I like to end each episode with the same question. Just to end on a fun note. Do you have any jokes, popular sayings, tongue twisters, cool slang words, idioms, words of wisdom, or words of advice in Urdu to share? And to teach me and all of us.
We do have a lot of things that we say that can be used to greet, that we've already talked about. And also there are ways that you can say certain things and have a completely different meaning. And one of those words is acha.
Acha.
Which means good, but you can say it in all these different ways and have a completely different meaning to it. So I think that is a good word to know. And you can be, if you're in agreement with somebody, you can say acha. Yeah, acha. And if you're not, then you can be like acha. It's just the way that you'd be using it, and then it just plays many, many different roles depending on the attitude and
I
what
love
it is.
that.
And another one is hanji. And you can even start your conversation with hanji or achaji. Hanji. There's just a filler.
Okay.
It doesn't really mean anything or anything, but it's you're starting out your podcast, you're like hanji, and then you're like, all right, now I have your attention, let's start talking. And I think we already talked about saying hi and how important greetings are. I think it's also important to, as you're leaving, to say Khuda Hafiz. Khuda is God, and Hafiz is under his protection. So Khuda Hafiz is a very, very good one to know.
Khuda Hafiz.
Yes. So Assalamu alaikum is hello, peace be upon you, as meeting up.
And Khuda Hafiz is farewell, goodbye.
Farewell, yes.
Well, thank you for sharing those. And I usually like to, ask a really quick, how do you say goodbye in the language that we've been talking about, but you beat me to it. So I like that. Khuda Hafiz.
Right. And, you can always throw in Hanji right before it, because, it's a Achaji Khuda Hafiz. Hanji, Achaji is probably best fitting here. Achaji Khuda Hafiz.
Achaji Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Faiza. And I will be talking to you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I had tons of fun.